Cutting the GST for first-time home buyers is another incentive. Cutting the municipal development charges, that's another thing. So development charges, like I know in Elliston today, they don't charge development charges. Sarnia charges $46,000. So there's a great disparity between them. And the other thing about affordable housing is, we were talking about today, is that if you're making 25 bucks an hour, right, and you want to rent a place for $1,500 a month, you're going to be paying $18,800 a year just at rent. And if you're going to go to a $2,400 a month residence, you're going to be paying $28,800. So we really have to sincerely look at looking at more wages, but also lowering the prices.
Affordable housing is the #1 priority for Sarnia-Lambton, and they already have a plan. They will spend $38 million over the next 10 years, but they need federal dollars to come to the table. We also have 5 projects in 5 years to build affordable housing. As Jacques said, it is supply and demand, and so we have to increase the supply of housing. Under the Liberal government, they put $4 billion of our taxpayer dollars into an accelerator fund to build 0 homes. And then they claimed that they were going to build 550,000 homes last year, and they were less than 200,000. And so we've allowed 5 million people into the country. We built 258,000 homes. Those math numbers don't work. We have to do both. We have to balance immigration to the housing that we can afford, and we have to build more homes and more affordable types of homes in order that young people can get into them. We will be cutting the GST up to a house price of $1.3 million on new home purchases to try to help young people get those homes. Thank you.
To echo but not plagiarize what Jacques said, it is supply and demand, and I mean the elephant in the room is immigration, so you have to think long and hard about that. Do we even actually know how many people are here? Do we actually know how many foreign entities have actually gobbled up land for housing as well? It's a handful of things. I mean, I could easily stand up here in front of you all tonight and just say, hey, let's just slash taxes and do this and get rid of regulations and just make life easy. Sure. But there's a much deeper sentiment here. You'll hear 3 candidates say we have to either put a moratorium or do something serious about immigration, and you're going to hear 3 other candidates talk about programs. You know who pays for those programs, right, folks?
Yes.
You folks pay for those programs. So unless there's a seriousness about limiting the number of people that are coming here, then it's just going to be like the tail wagging the dog. It's just going to be the same problem. Prices aren't going to go down, and we're still going to have a housing shortage. Thank you.
Well, Brian up next, and Tony will be last. There's a number of things we can do to reduce housing costs. Could we reduce the Bank of Canada's inflation target from 2% to 0%, and it will cool down inflation in all sectors, and including housing. We need to respect local planning. So respect local government's responsibilities in housing. They must be accountable to their populations and not subjected to federal pressure to densify neighborhoods with detached houses in order to accommodate mass immigration policies. I agree with Mark and Jacques. Mass immigration is a big problem in this country. It's a problem because it's not done properly. In our immigration system, if the immigrants get to where they are needed in the country, like rural Manitoba, for instance, I talked to a few people where we could use more immigrants. But when they're all flocking into Toronto and Vancouver and the major cities, it makes for it hard for people to rent apartments and young people to get anything because it's a big boom on our housing. So housing is primarily a provincial or local responsibility. Ottawa's involvement over the years has only resulted in distorting the housing market. There's nothing the federal government can do to change the provincial or municipal zoning laws, but it can stop contributing to overheating the housing market in different ways. And we want to propose a moratorium on immigration right now in Canada. It's not forever. It's till we get the housing market heat to come down and then get back to what our initial plans have been since 2019 for 100 to 150,000 immigrants a year. But right now we need to tone it down on the immigration. I think it'll bring the housing cost down. It is supply and demand.
even with some of the suggestions here, there are people who cannot see a pathway to even getting homes that way. We need a safe place for these people to transition. The Rhinoceros Party will build a huge honeycomb type building near Lambton College. We'll just have tubes where people can sleep, so that way they can have a safe place to stay. It'll be shaped like a honeycomb and like a beehive, so we'll call it the Beehive because of that on near the arena. It'll be sponsored by the sting, which will help fund it. The other thing is that we need to have money to help these kids or other people transition. The best way to get that money is through churches and charities. So to help churches raise even more money, religious institutions will be allowed to sell naming rights to their churches for the money. For example, instead of the Peterson Presbyterian Church of Sarnia, you could have the Jordan Peterson Presbyterian Church. And instead of the St. Philip's Catholic Church here in Petrolia, it would be the St. Philip's Screwdriver Catholic Church. And instead of Dunlop United Church, it would be the Dunlop Tire United Church. All this money could go to help people transition to housing.
And Kathy, it's your turn to follow up with any other candidates.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I'm going to direct this question to George. Because in all fairness, we have had a Liberal government for a lengthy period of time. And those of us who live in Lambton County, in this riding, we know that there's a terrible shortage of affordable housing. That we've got, I checked it today, we've got almost 300 people who live homeless right now. And there's lots of other people who are precariously housed. They are just barely hanging on and they're not housed in a way that would really work for their family. So they're underhoused. So we talk about getting more affordable housing built, and we know it's a municipal Lambton County responsibility. We know that federal dollars have been coming in to help build those houses. And yet we don't see those units opening, right? You know from being on city council in Sarnia, we're not seeing a lot of units open that are affordable. So can you help us with that disconnect? George, like, you know, you're talking about Mark Kearney promising some sort of a federal agency to build 500,000 affordable housing units a year. How would that happen? We already have some federal dollars flowing, and yet we still don't have more affordable housing.
Wow.
I'll turn it off, right? Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, I'm on my second term of council, and this is one of the issues that we've been grappling with. The money comes from the county of Lambton, and the county of Lambton is responsible for that type of housing. The problem has been that first of all, we have to find the land to put them on first, to build these buildings, the affordable housing. It's like what I just referred to it, when I'm looking at a place, the average price probably for rental right now is about $1,500 a month. That's a lot of money for a year for something that you don't have any equity in. When you have your own home, of course, you're building equity in that house, but with an apartment, you're just throwing that money out the window. So, yeah, so if we get you into affordable housing or something that's your own, a prime example is Habitat for Humanity. The people that go in there, they invest their time and their labor to help build it, and then they take ownership of that property. So that's a good way of doing it as well. But federally, right now, there is no government, and we're not empowered in yet, or maybe, who knows. But anyway, the 500,000 home idea is to build smaller types of homes. Like, who needs like a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot house? Like, who really, folks? Like, I live in a nice 1,200 square foot house, and I'm happy with that. So that's what we have to start looking at, is a smaller type of housing in good neighborhoods, and I think I've run out of time.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our third question of the night for all candidates again. This is about affordability and income inequality. The specific question From the price of groceries to rent to the cost of education, young and old are having trouble making ends meet. The gaps between those who have and those who don't keeps growing. How do we ease the affordability issues and narrow that gap? And we're gonna start this time with, it's gonna be Tony up first, followed by Marilyn, then Loanne.
For the Rhinoceros Party, this is a two-step process. First, we will remove the GST on all goods and services. In Canada, we will replace that funding by taxing all foreigners who live abroad. We tax all foreigners who live abroad $6.22. They will end paying for the money that's lost to GST. Any country that refuses to pay that for us, they'll lose they will be 25% tariff on all their goods, and they'll be banned from getting maple syrup and Nickelback CDs for life. The other thing is that billionaires know two things. Number one, that they got there because of hard work and dedication and strapping and pulling their bootstraps. And the other thing they realize is that the money that they get trickles down to everybody else. So I will end up taking every single penny away from every single billionaire and distribute it to people across Canada. Because as the billionaires know, that eventually that money is going to trickle down to them anyways, and with really hard work, dedication, and pulling up their bootstraps, they'll be able to become billionaires again.
The only way to address the affordability crisis is to cut taxes. We have been taxed to death over the last 10 years. So Conservatives will cut the carbon tax and the clean fuel tax. These are two things that have really impacted farmers and the price of food. We will also cut the capital gains tax proposed by the Liberals. In fact, every dollar of capital gains that is reinvested in a Canadian business will be entirely tax-free. We will cut the overall tax rate for the middle class by 15%, and we will take the GST off new homes up to $1.3 million value. In addition to that, we are going to unleash the power of our natural resources. You have to have well-paying jobs. And so we should be building pipelines, LNG facilities, the Ring of Fire, mining. This area, we have to protect our oil and gas and plastics, build the homes, and that will keep the economy going strong so we can support the social services that we all value so much. But we have to cut the taxes, number one. Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of this comes down to making sure that our basic human rights are met. That comes to making sure that we are able to afford our groceries. So the NDP's plan is to take off GST from essentials like children's clothing, diapers, internet, home heating, making sure we can have a price cap on groceries so that big corporations can't keep raising the price on things that we need and can't afford if we're choosing between paying our rent or feeding our families. This goes back to also our plan to build affordable homes so that corporate landlords can't keep buying up places and hiking up the rent, so it's becoming more and more unaffordable to find a place that we can actually afford. This also means making sure that the corporations are paying their fair share of taxes, because we can't just keep saying we're going to cut all the taxes from everybody everywhere, because how are you going to pay for any of our public services if the corporations don't pay their fair share? Sure, we need to make sure that our working families and people are not paying the consumer price tax on stuff, but the corporations can definitely afford to pay what they owe. And also, we are going to expand dental care and pharmacare to make sure that our basic health care needs can be met without having to pull out our credit cards to pay for those services.
All right, and just to, I know it's a long time between questions, just gonna remind the next people what the question was. So, for the price of groceries to rent the cost of education, young and old are having trouble making ends meet. The gaps between those who have and those who don't keep growing. How do we ease the affordability issues to narrow that gap? And we'll have Brian, followed by George, then Jacques, then Mark.
I think affordability is a massive issue right now. We're printing money to send overseas. This is what we're doing in Canada. We don't have any money. We're in debt up to our eyeballs, yet we continue to print money and send to places like the Ukraine for the war. I think we need to start paying attention to our own country. We need to make sure we spend our money on our young people. We need to invest in them. We need to take a look at rigged pricing in our groceries. Right now, we have a system called supply management that it fixes prices on our groceries. And everybody wants to blame the carbon tax. Well, yeah, it's part of it. And we need to cut the carbon tax and capital gains, like Marilyn was saying. But we also need to stop fixing our own prices on our groceries. A lot of people don't understand that our milk, poultry, and eggs has a fixed price, and it's not in the consumer's favor. Again, I get back to immigration. We need to take time to train our young people and train, instead of bringing in people from other countries for cheap, right? Because what we're doing is we're cutting off our own nose to spite our face. Our kids can't afford the homes, and we keep bringing in people who work for less. And I think we need to ask for a little more wage, and that in turn will drive our economy and get down our inflation. Inflation is a massive thing, and I think that's one of the main things. Stop printing money.
This is special mic. Well, we keep hearing about carbon taxes, and one thing we're gonna do is we've already done it. We've got rid of carbon tax for our personal lives, but we're also gonna take that off for agriculture as well. So, we're looking at reducing the lowest income tax rate by at least 1% for 22 million Canadians, saving a typical household $825 a year. Working to provide $10 a day child care in all parts of Canada. If any of you have children or grandchildren that have children, it's a great welcome. Eliminating the GST again for first-time house buyers, not for first-time, for actually not new homes, but for any house that would carry GST would be eliminated. Expanding dental care for Canadians to make it more affordable for Canadians. A lot of you, like me, are over 70 the first time in our lives are getting free dental care. So, building affordable homes and rental units, supporting programs for those negatively impacted by tariffs, and what probably the biggest one is our trades, getting our trades, people in the trades, millwrights, boilermakers, pipe fitters, etc., getting them established in the schools, and basically changing Lambton College to be retooled and, you know, looking at our trades, because that's where the future is. Thank you.
The number one culprit to address these issues is, bar none, the Bank of Canada. Central banks have been destroying the lives of many people. First of all, ask yourself, why is it that they have an inflation target of 2% per year? Why are we eager to pay more every single year? It's nonsense. Now let me quote you a US number. I suspect the Canadian numbers would be identical. But did you know that between 1770 and 1910, prices in the US were dropping gently year after year, which is exactly what you would expect in a productive environment. You know, in a productive society, prices come down. We are, no doubt, with AI and technology, we are more productive than we've ever been, and yet things are more expensive. Why? Constant money printing on the part of the bank. Now, in terms of the wealth element between different groups, again, we live now in a world of central planning when it comes to interest rates. We don't need that. Interest rates should be determined by supply and demand, not by some bureaucrat somewhere deciding what they ought to be. And when you drive interest rates low, assets are valued higher, right? Because it's a discounted value of cash flows. So the lower the interest rate, the higher the value. So if you want to, and of course, the party in power will point in every direction except the central bank, but that's where your problem is.
I am not an economist, and I am nowhere near as intelligent as Jacques. I can assure you of that right now. I will start with a question, and then attempt to answer the question, although in 90 seconds or whatever we have, it's kind of hard to give it fair justice. As Canadians, what do we really produce anymore compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago, as an example? The things that this country produces anymore are kind of simple. Vape shops, fast food locations, and government employees. That's what we produce anymore, and tons of them. The federal government is one of the biggest employers. If you look at Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC, those provinces, the government is the biggest employers in those provinces. So, the easiest way to do it would be to make it possible to produce things again. How do we do that? As again, like I said, I am nowhere near as intelligent as Jacques. He could probably tell you how to do it. I can't. Lowering taxes is always a great start. For once, I think this is something the whole table agreed on. Lowering taxes, because as a group, believe it or not, we like each other, but we don't agree on a lot. Lowering taxes is a great start. But if you were investing, if you were a business owner and you were investing today, let me ask you this. Would you invest in Ontario, or would you find Texas or Florida and invest there tomorrow? I'm willing to bet you invest in the red state because it's a lot more profitable to do so there. We need to find a way to want to get people to invest in Canada again, and that's where we start to fix all the other problems as well. Thank you.
Tara, if you have any follow-up questions, go ahead.
I would like to use this opportunity while we talk about affordability to highlight some really important work done in Lambton County. Last year, The Independent published a 6-part series called Hungry in Lambton that Kathy Dobson and Glenn Ogilvie actually just won a provincial journalism award for. Oh, hello? And if you didn't read that series, I really suggest that you go online and read that. It was a 9-month investigation about folks living right here in Petrolia, Alvinston, who have serious issues with food insecurity, students going to high school without food. Which, by the way, was possible thanks to local journalism funding. So anyway, with that, I would like to ask Marilyn, what will your government do to ensure that folks are not going to bed hungry?
Great question and a huge issue. We've seen after 10 years of Liberal government record lineups at the food banks and homeless encampments across the nation. And at the heart of it, it's people that are losing their homes because they can't afford to live in them anymore. And it's people that have gotten into addiction and mental health issues. And we have to address all of these root causes. We have to hit the affordability issue. We have to create affordable spaces. I brought a lot of money to Sarnia-Lambton to address homelessness here. More is needed in terms of recovery beds to get people out of addiction, mental health supports. All of these things are interrelated. But at the bottom line is people can't afford to live. We have the highest personal debt in the world, and it's at the feet of the Liberal government who has taxed everybody to death in this country.
Great, thank you. So what we're going to do now is that I'm going to go through a few of the questions that have been submitted from the audience, and each candidate, they have this form that they can fill out, and they can select which candidate they wanted to answer the question, okay? So it won't be all of them for this one. And I believe that we're going to give 90 seconds again for these responses. So, and I'm also going to sprinkle in a few questions that we had prepared, and that one will be for all candidates. We won't give as much time. Okay, so the first one, this is directed at George.
60 seconds.
Oh, 60 seconds. Okay, 60 seconds. George, you have to be efficient. All right. Okay. All right. 60 seconds, George. The question is: considering how important Camoco Valley is to our local economy, how do you plan to support the oil, gas, and plastics industry in this region, especially as the Liberals and NDP continue pushing policies that threaten to shut it down?
Of course, we're going to support the Chemical Valley and, all the pipelines that come into this area, because without these products coming here, we're not gonna get the products that are gonna go out that we need every day. The clothes that you're wearing are made out of petroleum products, a lot of them. You know, the interiors of your cars are made from plastics that are made right here in the Chemical Valley. We are the source for the fuel that goes through all of this part of Ontario out to eastern Ontario. We produce the fuel that fuels Pearson International Airport. We produce the propane that goes to Quebec and the upper thumb of Michigan. So we are a big powerhouse, and we are not going to lose it.
Thank you. All right, the next question is directed for Marilyn. And the question is, how is your party going to increase revenue if you axe all the tax?
Well, the first thing we'll do is cut the waste and the grift that's going on right now. Just so you know, the Liberal government spent $51 billion of our taxpayer money in other countries last year. And they also spent $55 billion to build a bunch of EV plants, most of which are closing now because of lack of demand. So there's a huge amount of waste. We know there's a huge amount of grift. The $35 billion infrastructure bank that hasn't built a project. These are the kinds of things that we will cut in order to make sure that we are focused on Canadians and putting Canadians first for a change. In addition to that, we are going to build projects. LNG, we've been offered LNG projects, $60 billion from Germany, $60 billion from Japan, $60 billion a year from the Netherlands. And the Liberal government refused all of them and said there was no business case. And so other countries got those jobs and that profit. Think what we could do with $180 billion a year more in our system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to switch over to a question for everyone now. All right, and this is going to be, again, 60 seconds. And we'll try to go, I'm going to give you an order now, and we're going to stick with that order for the rest of the night, okay? So the question is, what infrastructure project or projects would you and your party support locally that would spur the economy and bring lasting benefits? So new infrastructure projects. And the order. We'll go with George, followed by Jacques, then Loanne. Get the rest later.
How much time do we have?
60 seconds.
60 seconds. Infrastructure projects. Well, a lot of our infrastructure is aging. Today, when I was with the mayor of Brooke Alvinston, he took me down to a bridge down in the south end of the county that's got to be replaced. Well, they've got no money to replace it. So it's a major road that people use, and without a bridge, you're going to have to go around a few miles to get around to your house at the other side. So there's things there that we could put our money into. Aging structures, and we've got lots of them around here. We've got infrastructure, we've got an airport that could use a bunch of bucks in it, and we could bring some, through developing that airport, we could get businesses coming in through there as well. Expanding our rail system, that's another thing that we could look at. We could definitely use a better via rail service here in Sarnia, but also with the amount of freight that goes in and out of there, probably, I don't know why CN took the old line out, but probably maybe look at putting a second line in. Anyway, it looks like I've got time, no time.
Well, if we leave aside things like the TransCanada, local infrastructure should be determined by local people. And I can tell you, the federal government has taxing powers that are well in excess of its responsibilities, which is why, in terms of healthcare, it blackmails the provinces all the time. The Libertarian Party would actually download taxes to provinces in the hope that they would do the same to municipalities, so that people locally who know best would then be able to allocate the funds in the way that they think would provide the greatest return. It is madness to think that the bureaucrat in Ottawa knows better than the people of this region what needs to be done. It's asking for problems if you give it in the hands of people who have no skin in the game. The people here do, right? So allow them to tax their people and decide, because they know best.
So having talked to several different farmers and rural residents, I found out that basically there's a lot of things that can be combined together to work with each other to help support local economy in terms of making sure that we have investing more into local co-processors and processing plants so we can do agriculture derived fuels as one option for farmers to sell their soy and corn towards soy diesel plants or ethanol plants like Suncor has locally. Also having local food processors so that we can actually process livestock locally instead of shipping that off and then getting possibly disrupted by strikes from rail or port and other processors there. This in general would create a better supply chain resilience locally, which would help generate income for Canadians and add value to our local economy, and that also gives us more control over how our food system works and more food sovereignty there.
And we'll have Brian, followed by Tony, then Marilyn and Mark.
So, the People's Party would promote expansion of our gas and oil industries in Sarnia-Lambton by getting rid of the Paris Accord. Paris Accord is a bunch of carbon targets that get put on by globalist entities that Canada signed into. It's going to create a stranglehold on our businesses, so we want to do that. But one thing Maxime Bernier did promise down here in 2019 was to have a federal funded and subsidized detox and rehab center. And I've said it in the last 2 elections, and I'll continue to say it. I think it's not a massive infrastructure project for the community, but I wanted to make sure that I got it out, and I think that this is the time to do it. He's not kidding around. I've talked to him recently, made sure I can still bring that forward, and it is one of the things that the People's Party wants to promote. So we want to go big with gas and oil, but we also want to make sure we're taking care of the community. Drugs are federally regulated. I think it's time the feds cough up some money to stop our fentanyl and meth problem in Sarnia-Lambton-Bkejwanong.
In 30 seconds, I have to read when I get it done. The National Party thinks there are many infrastructure projects that are important to Sarnia, but the biggest need is to connect the people to revitalizing downtown. If elected, we will build a high-speed subway system that connects the downtown to the growing metropolises of Brights Grove, Corunna, Petrolia, and Wilkesport. To help fund the project, which will be totally funded on its own, government-owned drive-through Tim Horton franchise will be set up every 100 meters on the westbound 401 from the Blue Water Bridge to Moulden Road. This will help the truckers who are waiting in line for a long time trying to get across the border. And because they're going to drink a lot more coffee and get more money in between the Tim Hortons, we will put paid toilets for them to refuel.
Lots of opportunities for new infrastructure. In addition to protecting our oil, gas, and plastics, which the NDP and the Liberals have continually voted to shut down, we have an opportunity. We need more electricity in the grid, and at the Lambton Generating Station, there are plans to build a cogen, a small modular nuclear reactor, alternate energy facilities. In addition to that, St. Clair Township needs $25 million to expand their wastewater and stormwater systems so that we can attract more businesses. They've been on the short list for several plants, not including the Diageo one that has come. Rural Ontario has been actually punished by the definition federally so that they can't get dollars for roads and bridges. So places like Don Euphemia, 2,500 people in their tax base, can't afford to repair the roads they have. We have to change that. The federal government has most of the money. They need to put the money into infrastructure locally here in our communities. Thank you.
I would think for infrastructure and for projects of that nature, it'd be the greatest example of an MP working with the MPP and working with the local government together to get the funds. Because it's not usually the federal government's job is usually to get the cash and then put it off to the municipalities to take care of it. So that would be, if you have you need all parts of the body working together. That's how you're gonna get projects accomplished. I would be a huge fan of getting more via rail here as well. I mean, I think that would just be huge for people to get to TO as opposed to actually driving, because if anyone drives on the 401, you just know it's just an utter nightmare anymore. You look at Sarnia Transit, how it's been pushed out into the county, and if there's money, I mean, obviously you need a thriving economy to spend the money. So if there's a way you can even get more transit out there and help people move around that way, that'd be very effective as well. Thank you.
All right, Blake, Kathy, Tara, would you do any follow-ups for any of those responses?
I can. Is this on again? All right. Marilyn, I believe when you were talking about homelessness, you indicated that you had brought some dollars into this riding related to that. Can you be specific what you've done there?
Yes, there was a homelessness initiative from the County of Lambton that we brought an additional $6 million to when we saw that the homelessness was rising through the pandemic. We already were providing $2 million a year, but we increased that by another $6 million to get us over the bump until they started to find that people were getting placements and getting back into affordable housing.
Great. So I'm going to go back to some audience questions now. This one is for Marilyn. You're very popular. Would you push to repeal the Liberal Order in Council that stripped law-abiding gun owners of their legally purchased guns?
Absolutely, we will repeal the orders in council. It is not law-abiding firearms owners in this country that are shooting up people in Toronto. 95% of gun crime in Canada is illegal guns and guns used illegally. And the government that has been in power for 10 years has done nothing to eliminate the illegal guns coming in or to actually punish the people that are doing repeat violent offenses and being let out on bail. And so we will address both the soft on crime, catch and release bail policies, and we will also repeal these orders in council so that law-abiding firearms owners can actually enjoy, the sports and the hunting and the fishing, not they shoot the fish, but the hunting that they enjoy. I took my license, actually, and my restricted license, so I could learn what the rules are. A lot of the people that are critical don't understand the very stringent rules that we have in this country. It's illegal guns and guns used illegally that we need to address. Thank you.
All right, the next one is for George. And the question from the audience is, your costed platform talks about liquidating jobs for environmentally costly AI. What systems does your party propose to implement to support families already struggling to afford to live who will now be jobless because of AI?
I'd like to hear that question again, because you're talking about artificial intelligence, right? And then, yeah, I'm not following the question.
So I'll read it again. Your costed platform talks about liquidating jobs for environmentally costly AI. What systems does your party propose to implement to support families already struggling to afford to live who will now be jobless because of AI?
I don't even think I can answer that, because I don't know what jobs are being affected by artificial intelligence through AI. Like, if somebody out there's got an example of it, I would like to invite that person to tell me what jobs have been eliminated. Brokerage.
Yes, artificial intelligence is now taking trucking shipments and doing it artificially intelligent instead of hiring a person to do it.
Okay, that's something that I wasn't familiar with, but it was something I would certainly look into, because frankly, I can't give you an answer on that, so.
I was just using an example.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
George, in that question, in your
Sorry, questions are coming here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna have one more from the audience. This one, they checked off 4 people. And so it's Jacques, Brian, Marilyn, and Mark. You've been asked to answer this question. Do you believe trans and queer people deserve to live freely, authentically, and safely? They're asking to say a little bit more than just yes, no, please.
Is there a particular order, or we just
No,
hit it as we go?
doesn't matter. Jacques, go first. Brian, doesn't matter.
Want to go first, Josh?
I'll go, I have no problem.
Whichever.
I think that question is something that we need to realize as Canadians, that we're all created equally and we need to treat everybody the same way. So for me, whether you're trans, gay, straight, whatever nationality you are, your race, everyone deserves the same rights and everyone deserves the same respect. So that's where I stand with the People's Party. One thing I will say is, it has to stop there. It has to stop there. Oftentimes we see people taking things too far from every end of the spectrum when it comes to, from politics, religion, sexual orientation. We need to make sure we don't go too far. And I think there's a fine balance there. But if it comes to rights for everybody, yeah, it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. You have rights. You're in Canada. We have to keep that.
You sure did. Can I get you just to repeat it real quick again?
Yeah.
Do you believe trans and queer people deserve to live freely, authentically, and safely?
Well, of course, I am running for the Christian Heritage Party, so, unlike the government, I do believe in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I, as a Bible-believing Christian, it is difficult for me to affirm, but I cannot hate. So that means, yes, I believe totally in your freedoms. You have every right to live the same life that I do. We're no different in that regard. We believe in different things, and that's all well and good, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm prepared to be not prepared to change the Bible as it sits, but you are entitled to your free life. Absolutely, no different than anyone else. Make no mistake about that.
Absolutely, I believe in the rights of trans and queer people to be free to live how they want, to be safe in our country. As the Shadow Minister of Civil Liberties, I've been standing up for the rights and freedoms of everyone. Here locally, I have supported our LGBTQ community, brought funding to them, helped their members, attended their events. I think it's really important that we value everyone, that we treat everyone respectfully, and that everyone can be safe in their choice of how they want to live. Thank you.
Well, the Libertarian Party, we have a sterling record on this, and we've been ahead of the curve for multiple decades. People of different orientation would have been spared massive amount of problems, discrimination, what have you, under a Libertarian government. And not quite sure why it took so long to other parties to finally recognize that people are free to live their lives as they see fit, as long, of course, as they respect the freedom of others. It's as simple as that. And we've been there for a long time.
Thank you all. I'm going to go on to one more audience question. It's to Lo-Ann Chan. As a full-time employed person, I pay for dental coverage, which I only get 80% coverage of, plus pay taxes for healthcare. Where is your party getting the money to cover all Canadians plus new Canadians for dental care?
So in order to pay for all of our public services, the NDP's plan is to make sure that the corporations pay their taxes. Right now, there's a lot of subsidies and tax cuts for corporations that they're not paying, and they could afford to actually pay those. And all that money can go towards the public services that everybody deserves to have. That means getting their dental care, getting their medication that's prescribed. Those things shouldn't have to cost you extra on top of all the hard work you're already doing just to pay your own way through housing or rent or to groceries. And so we want to make sure that you're able to afford to support your own families and not have to pay for the taxes that the corporations are not paying right now.
Thank you. All right, we are going to have one more question for all of you. All right, and this one is about local journalism, since this evening was partially funded by the federal government in the journalism fund. Okay, so does your party support the funding of local journalism? Are you concerned about the reliability of information being consumed by Canadians, either online or in print media? If so, how do you propose to address this issue? So do you support local journalism, the funding of local journalism, and are you concerned about the content and media that Canadians are consuming? Okay, so we'll go in the same order as last time, so it's going to be George, then Jacques, then Loanne.
Of course, we're gonna support local journalism. You know, when we hear about these wonderful stories that Kathy and Glenn Ogilvy have done in relation to homelessness, you know, and some of the stuff that we've been involved with in the last week with Tara and others, with Cogeco, it's good to have local journalism because then we know what's going on in our community. If we rely on what's going on in a central media blitz, sometimes I listen to the radio and I'm getting a story that happened in St. Thomas about a break and enter. Well, that's nice that I heard about this story of a break and enter, but I'd like to know what's going on locally. I want to know what's going on in my backyard. If there's an accident on the 402, I want to know about it as fast as I can so I can avoid that. So yeah, local journalism is important, and I very much think that we should be supporting it.
That's a hard no on our part. The government has no business supporting, as I said before, whether it's corporatism, corporate welfare, cronyism. It's all of these things are bad. They're bad. And where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? What's the next industry is going to come cap in hand and asking for this? And of course, it's inherently dangerous when you have the government paying your salary and then you are expected. And I'm not saying that people can't do it. I'm just saying it's more difficult for people to be truly critical of the hand that feeds them. So, hard no.
Absolutely, we support local journalism and we believe that it should continue to be funded. Right now, we have about 78% of Canadians are in support of funding the CBC and Radio Canada because it has a lot of modernized programming. It is one of the only ways that a lot of people in rural areas get their news. We believe that more local journalism would help make sure that all the stuff that is relevant to us here actually gets talked about. Like if we were talking about what has happened locally, we need more funding for local journalism so we can talk about the fact that Walpole Island was directly affected by their water supply from the crude oil spill, and that wasn't actually talked about a lot, so we need more of those there. And New Democrats would definitely support more made in Canada content, making sure that tech giants like Elon Musk don't force out Canadian content on Meta, because we aren't able to access good local journalism because they decided that they don't want to pay the Canadian government to make sure we get our Canadian news. And we want to expand our French language programming for Radio Canada to strengthen bilingualism.
Thank you. So I just have to make one correction, that the funding for tonight was part of the Public Policy Institute and the Rito Hall Foundation, not from the federal government. So my apologies for that mistake on my behalf. So yeah, we'll go back to Brian, Tony, Marilyn, and then Mark.
I support open market, so sponsorship for newspapers is what I believe in. You don't have to look too far to see that the People's Party is blackballed in journalism in Canada. We got almost 1 million voters in the last election, almost 3 times the amount as Greens. We don't make any national media. In fact, they removed us from the debates. They didn't let my leader debate, and we had met the criteria for the national debates. So my leader's over in the States with Tucker Carlson because the national funded media won't show the People's Party. They won't show our platform to the Canadian people because they don't want to, because they get paid by the guys and girls from the Liberal and Conservative parties who are dictating what is going on in the country. So I agree with what Jacques says. How do you have critical news of the people who are paying you? It's the old saying, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So no, I don't believe in federal funded journalism. Thank you.
It's difficult for journalists not to spread misinformation when that's all they get from the politicians. To ensure that they actually get decent answers, I would put electric dog collars, shock collars on every single politician. Every single time a question is asked, politicians dodge, dance, pivot, and do not answer the question or else they're specifically there. Journalists would have the right to shock these politicians with electric dog collars, thereby until they get an answer that's accurate. That way the Canadian people will get accurate answers and journalists will get better respect because they will now actually not be spreading misinformation.
It's a hard act to follow. So local journalism is essential to our democracy. This is how people will get actual information about what's really happening. And unfortunately, the Liberal government has been coming against freedom of the press with bills like C-18 that affected people's ability to share the news links from local journalists. So I would say that in communist countries, we have the state-owned propaganda. That's a very dangerous model. That's something Canadians don't want. But when we are funding all the mainstream media out of the government, I don't think that's healthy for democracy. We've been clear that we are going to defund parts of the CBC. We will keep things like Radio Canada, which is an essential French service, but you know, the services that many of the mainstream are offering that are competing with other streaming services, they should compete on a level playing field. We need journalism, it's healthy for our democracy, but we can't have the state own it. Thank you.
Oh boy, I wish I had more than a minute, so I'll do the best that I can with this. Typically, you will not find anyone more of a harsher critic than the media than myself, personally. Especially, I mean, we just spent $178 million on CBC. Who watches CBC anymore? No, fair enough. I mean, that's a fair thing. But I will say this, running in this election, this one especially as opposed to the provincial one, the local media has been absolutely fantastic. I think they've presented all 7 of us in as bright a light as possible. I would much rather see these 3 folks here get a cut of that $178 million. And not because I want you to write something nice about me. I'm not sucking up. I can find better ways to do that. I would much rather you guys get a chunk of that and report locally to the local people than see a centralized media just spouting out what some may think is liberal propaganda. I'm not saying that, but I'm kind of saying that.
All right, thank you very much. Now, we are nearing the end of the evening, and this is your last all candidates event of the campaign, I believe. So we thought we'd give you an opportunity to maybe each of you, if you want to bring up an issue that you haven't had a chance to talk about, an issue that's important to your party or you that you'd like to put some light on as part of your last statement of the night. We'll have closings after this, but still. So we'll go in the same order as last time. I lost my order. George. Okay. All right, George, you're up first. So an issue that you would like to spotlight that you haven't had an opportunity to do.
Is it still 1 minute?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
1 minute.
1 minute.
So, I'll talk about the so-called catch and release phrase that you all seem to be hearing about. It's a kind of an American term more so than a Canadian term. But we have to remember that in Canada, if the federal government enacts the laws, the province of Ontario has the responsibility through the Ministry of the Attorney General and the Ministry of the Solicitor General to enforce those laws and adjudicate that. So we should be going back and saying to our provincial government that you need to hire more judges, you need to build some more jails, etc., if you want to deal with this problem. I know locally our jail has probably about 146 inmates in it right now, which is well above what they should be having in there. So it's pretty crowded. And you've probably heard from things like Maplehurst, judges in Toronto that are giving people no time served because of the jail conditions. So that is a provincial responsibility, and I just want you to be reminded of that.
Our country faces approximately $3 trillion in unfunded liabilities. To put it in context, the federal debt is 1.3 trillion. This is the money that should have been set aside over the last many decades to make up for the shortfall between the promises that have been made to Canadians in the form of CPP, OAS, and Medicare, and the gap between the value of these and the percentage of taxes that's been allocated to pay for them, okay? For example, on healthcare, if you think that things are bad right now, brace yourself. Between now and 2042, things are gonna get worse. And when I see, suspenders snapping on the part of the NDP because they brought in more promises when we can't even pay for the current set of promises, it's the height of irresponsibility. We have a massive problem and nobody talks about it.
So I want to talk about proper representation in government, whether we're talking about how we need more of a rural voice in politics to make sure that we have better agricultural policies in place and not just urban focused ones, whether we're talking about the lack of First Nations justice and the infrastructure gap that we have on First Nation reserves right now, or whether we're talking about gender representation in the House of Commons or anywhere else where decisions are being made. We talk about how diversity is a core Canadian value. I remember growing up and hearing that we were a melting pot and that's what made Canada so great. And right now we just see a lot of division, and we need to remember what made us great to begin with was the fact that we had so many different voices, and we need to make sure these voices are at the table now. When we have diverse representation, we have better leadership to protect healthcare, jobs, and shared values for all of us and not just some of us.
I guess one of the issues I wanted to bring up was connections between members of parliament. Right now, if you look, Stephen Harper actually appointed Mark Carney to the governor of the Bank of Canada. Carney is now the leader of the Liberal Party. He's a big-time pro-Paris Accord guy, anti-gas and oil, big time. And I don't think we can afford any of it. And believe it or not, the Conservatives all voted, I think maybe one, Gallant, I don't know if I'm right on that, to go with the Paris Accord. The Conservatives have supported a bill to demand carbon targets from a global entity. So they can talk about cutting the carbon tax. They can say they want to do it all they want. They signed on the bottom line to pretty much put a stranglehold on Chemical Valley. So that's a reality. And I like to call them the uni party. I see no light between the Liberals or the Conservatives at all.
The Renaissance Party has a 5-point plan to defend the Canadian borders. Number one, we defend the Great Lakes by installing thousands of people riding jet skis on them. It's not that they're dangerous, but they're so annoying. Number two, create a special forces unit and expertise in math that will count the 1,000 islands every day to make sure that Donald Trump hasn't stolen any of them. Number three, pay the American 10% tariff put on the penguins of the herd McDonald Islands in order to use that as a military base. Number four, confuse Americans trying to cross the border to 49th parallel by installing tens of thousands of U-turn signs on the border. And to prevent escalations due to a miscommunication with the Americans, all Canadian military personnel will be trained to be fluent in the national official language of the United States, illiteracy.
So I want to talk about crime. Crime is up 115% in our country. Sexual assault up 75%. Car theft up 40%. Violent crime has doubled. And so George can say it's not the federal government's responsibility, but he's late to the party, and that's because he was part of the Conservative Association for decades, and he doesn't know what his party has done. C-75, C-5, and C-83 are 3 bills that the Liberals brought in to make sure that criminals would get the least obstructive punishment. So that started with C-75 and eventually came down to C-83 and C-5, giving house arrest for sexual assault and violent crimes. So that has to be reversed. We have to stop letting criminals out on the street. They're a danger to the public. And we do need more judges, but it's the federal government that has not appointed judges, and that's why we're in such a pickle. So we have to stop the crime. Conservatives will do that. Thank you so much.
Well, for the Christian Heritage Party, come late December last year, the Finance Committee with the Liberals, the Bloc, the NDP, and the Conservatives came up with the great idea of taking away the charitable status of churches. And, you know, with that, taking away the charitable status of any churches would automatically kick in a revocation tax. So basically what the government is looking to do, for lack of a better term, is basically steal the land and the buildings from the churches. And I realize all of you in here may not be Christian or Catholic or Presbyterian or whichever. So you might be looking at me right now and saying, Mark, that doesn't affect me in any way, shape at all. I will offer this up as a warning to you. If you have a government that has gone to such tyrannical measures to actually try to eliminate the church, what makes you think that you're not next? And before you turn and look at me and say, oh, Mark, that would never happen. How could that ever happen? I will take you back to COVID, when they stripped away your rights, locked you down, had your grandmother pass away in a nursing home. Hopefully not, but that happened. If the government needs it, I guess I'm done. So I guess that's the end of that. It's too bad I could have went on for longer.
All right. Thank you for those responses. Now it's time for our closing. And I'm going to go back to the original order of the first question. You may not remember, but it was, you get 1 minute, I believe, to close. There probably are some undecided voters out here. This is a chance. Mark is first, then Marilyn, Tony, Brian, Loanne, Jacques, and George.
The debates this week, to me, were very interesting and very, not because of what the politicians said. None of that was interesting at all. I mean, that was just all tired of the pack stuff. To me, it was the media scrum afterwards that caught my attention the most. The NDP leader was posed with a question that even though he's a big pusher of white privilege and Islamophobia, he was just asked about the vandalism and burning down of hundreds of churches in Canada. And he basically walked away. You have to ask yourself, what type of Canada do you think we have, and what type of Canada do we actually have? And whether you're a Liberal, a Conservative, or an NDP, you have to take a good, long, hard look in the mirror and see exactly where this country's going. Of course, after a question like that, there was no media scrum the next night because they didn't want any outside media in. It was only the CBC, and you know, of course, the government kind of picks and chooses what they like in that regard. So just something for you to think about come April 28th. Pick the government that's best for you. Vote for Mark Moore and the Christian Heritage Party.
After 10 years of Liberal government, Costs are up, taxes are up, house prices have doubled, rent has doubled, we have record lineups at the food banks, we have homeless encampments across the nation, we have decimated the military, we have crime in the streets. We cannot afford another term of liberal governments. Conservatives are going to cut the taxes, build the homes, create jobs, fix the budget, and stop the crime. That is what this country needs. We are going to reinvest in our military so that we can protect our sovereignty while we are proud Canadians together. And so on April 28th, vote Marilyn Gladue to put Canada first for a change. Thank you.
Anyone who's heard me at other meetings know I stand for three things. Number one, everyone should get out and vote for someone. Number two, if you do not think there's anyone who deserves your vote, vote for me as a protest. You should not be ignored. Number three, our sovereignty is under attack and we need to do something about it. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has said that if a Liberal government is elected, she will institute actions in order to see whether Alberta should separate, knowing that 30% of Albertans said that they would like to join the United States. But this is a quote that she has about Pierre Poilievre. I would say on balance, the perspective that Pierre Poilievre would bring would be very much in sync with the new direction of America. So he wants to be Prime Minister and he wants to be the new direction of America. If you think that is a joke, if politics is a joke, and you think Parliament is a circus, vote for the clown.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Obviously, democracy lives in Petrolia tonight, which is awesome. Thanks to the journalists, everybody who put this on. It means a lot. You know, I always come across a couple of people that hit me in the heart during the elections, and it's happened multiple times. We have needy people in the community. I think all the politicians would be good, whoever gets elected here, to help out for that. One thing that I do want to say is just get out and vote. Right now, you've got to watch what happened. The Conservatives have done a 25-point nosedive. They pushed Trudeau out. They allowed Carney to rebuild the Liberals. To me, I think that they like to mute their MPs. We get a Conservative MP in Ottawa, but they're told what to say. They get whipped into saying what the party wants them to. You elect me with the People's Party, I'll be able to do what you asked me to do. I won't be muted. Thanks.
Despite all the fear and uncertainty surrounding this election, when I go to talk to people at the doors, I'm seeing hope. Hope for the future, for our families, and for our community. People are exercising their right to vote for the first time because someone has shown up, listened to their concerns, and gets the job done. Not in exchange for a vote, but for the betterment of our community and the people within it. Canadians shouldn't have to choose between supporting equity-deserving communities or investing in the economy. As a member of the NDP, and more importantly as a member of this community, I will make sure that Ottawa listens to the diverse needs of our riding, that the government is held accountable to their promises, and that all the identities that make up our community are represented. When we think of Canada, does our government prioritize the profits for corporations, or does it put the needs of its people first? If we're willing to sacrifice our integrity and principles for money, we're not going to end up with either of them. So vote accordingly.
I have 4 grandsons, a 5th one on the way, and God willing, 4 grandchildren in the future. And I grieve for them, having seen the Liberal platform released last week, which will add $225 billion to our debt. Deficits today mean higher taxes tomorrow, taxes my grandsons cannot yet vote against. No ethical framework that I know of justifies this. For decades, this practice has eroded fairness. I also grieve because policies like Bill C-11 and C-63 threaten their freedom of speech, a right we must cherish. Only the Libertarian Party of Canada stands firmly for fiscal responsibility and uncompromised free speech. 1 week from today, I ask for your vote to protect these vital principles for our children's future. Thank you.
You know, I had a speech prepared, but I don't think I'm gonna read that speech. I'm gonna give you right from my heart. My family came from war-torn Europe in 1951, 1952. My mother was a guest of the Nazis for 10 weeks. My grandfather died in a place called Dachau. It's a concentration camp. We came here to this country. We prospered. We've done really well. This is a great country, and I want you to remember that.
So just to finish up, thank you all again, candidates, for your time tonight. It's been, I know how much work it is to put in the effort and time for a campaign. We'd like to thank the Legion, the volunteers, for your hard work in helping set up for tonight. And also thank the Public Policy Institute and the Rideau Hall Foundation, which provided the Independent with a special grant for increased election coverage. The costs of this evening's debate have been covered by that grant. By reminding voters, all of you and all the candidates, you're welcome to stay behind. The bar will be open. No, sorry, the bar is not open. I thought I read that wrong.
It's free. Sorry.
Now we're right.
No, sorry, I got your hopes up. The bar is not
There
open.
is
But
coffee though.
there is coffee, yes. We have refreshments over here. You can stay behind and chat with the candidates. And of course, we've got 1 week until election day, so everyone get out and vote.